是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 232. It is the first day of the week, aka the Kamehameha workout, Kamehameha wave workout. I am feeling pretty good, very excited, very happy to be doing this workout, and looking forward to getting down into the basement. I'm not going to call it the dungeon. I'm going to figure out the name still. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today, which I wanted to talk about because this was just something I noticed, I guess, with my channel in particular, and then I wanted to just extrapolate that out because it's very true, and that is social credit, aka social proof, one of the two. It's the same thing, same concept, in a slight different way, but mostly the same. But basically, the reason why this even came up was because I noticed I got past 100 subscribers, and that was a very, very great milestone, and I still need to do the special for that. That'll be in the future. But currently I am at, as of the recording of this episode, I am at 125 subscribers. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I noticed the moment that I got past that threshold of 100 subscribers, things kind of shifted in the numbers game when it came to subscriber counts and how fast I was accumulating. So when I first started this channel, it was November of 2023, I believe. That was the first video of this channel going up. It took me over a year in order to get those first 100 subscribers. I would say I think it took 13 months or 14 months, something along those lines. So it took 13 months, let's just say 13 months in order to get to 100, which is, I have no idea if that's about right, but that's about right. So that's with mostly consistent uploading, some weak spots here and there, but I really started being consistent with it. But over the past month or two, after reaching the plateau of 100, it seems as though that I've quadrupled the time that it will be in order to get to 200, because now within a month I'm already a quarter of the way there, which before getting 25 subscribers was literally a 3-month slog. So it would go from 3 months to 1 month, maybe even less time than that, honestly. So it's been quite an interesting just journey, I guess, but also seeing that you can see how once you reach certain levels, it's like as if you see other people liking the video or just watching your stuff, and then it's like, oh, other people like it too, I guess I'll subscribe to it too. And even from me, who's a small content creator, if you extrapolate that over just other aspects of it, which I will get into the voiceover about, because this isn't just the only part, but this is where I noticed it. But it's just interesting that in a concept that we are told shouldn't be the thing, oh, you shouldn't follow the leader, oh, you shouldn't follow what others are doing, you shouldn't do X or Y, that, you should think for yourself, all this other stuff, that people will do it anyway, regardless of whether they're being told or not, and it's just funny to see this as a small microcosm of such a larger, not necessarily issue, but a larger trend within human just thoughts and stuff like that. So human characteristics, there you go, it's a better term. But it's just funny to see this, because it's funny that even in the smallest of small things, you'll slowly see these types of things inch their way into there. It's just interesting to me that this will happen regardless of how small or large it is, because at a certain point, and we'll get to this in the voiceover, because at a certain point when it gets too large, that's when it flips on the other side, and thus you have too much, an overexposure of yourself, and thus your social proof goes down because of it, and that's a whole other discussion, but we'll get to that, I think, later on. But for now, I just want to say it's just interesting to me that this is so, it's funny because it's talked down about all the time, but for some reason you either get people who want to use it for their advantage as something, or people that want to deny its existence and then somehow fall into it. So it's there's no real middle ground to it where you're actually decently using it, but also not being a complete asshole about it, but also acknowledging its existence. Maybe I'm leaning towards one way or the other, I don't know, but we'll get more detail about stuff like that and how people use it and manipulate it when we get downstairs.
All right, so started this day off with dips, which were pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter here, social proof. And The main reason why I wanted to discuss this was because, like I said before, at this point of time since starting this YouTube channel now, I have gotten 141 subscribers at the moment of recording this. Probably the same when it released, but who knows, maybe a couple more by then, hopefully. But still, it is something that I noticed that happened, basically, that after 100, the spike really does happen. And now I understand that there was possibly a spike that could have happened regularly, you know, with the amount of videos and the normal growth projections, all of those things definitely probably could have happened. It's not anything too unrealistic, but I feel like as well, there are certain people that are stuck in certain doldrums nonstop, so I understand where it may not happen like that. I just wanted to talk more about this because it seemed like such a interesting thing because of how influenced people are via numbers, whether they are being influenced by them to keep going or to follow someone. I think it's very interesting to think about that personally. And it's not even just in social media based, but also in other parts of the world and other dynamics, social dynamics. For example, the entire phenomena where once you get a partner, other people seem to want you, specifically if you're a dude and you get a girlfriend. All of a sudden, now other women are kind of into you. You didn't even know. But at the same time, it happens because you've been proven to be a wanted commodity, which is an interesting thing. Because if you weren't before, then you were tossed aside. But the moment that you become a wanted commodity by one person, you're a wanted commodity by others because you are shown to have some sort of value that this person saw, and thus you will continue to provide value to others. So that is just interesting to me because we do that even with things like numbers on social media and stuff like that. If I see someone has 300K followers, am I more inclined to follow them? Not necessarily. But I am more willing to check out their stuff because I would like to see what other people see in them. If 30 people follow this person, I am less inclined to check out their stuff because I probably wouldn't be their target audience / it's not enough social proof. And it's interesting that we do it with just a number like that, but it just happens. It's just one of those things that it's just interesting to me to see when it comes to other parts of the world that just kind of intrude into this part. Now, some people will use this as a manipulation tactic. Obviously, they'll fake numbers, they'll fake things, they'll fake interactions, they'll do all of that stuff. But when you see that, you can understand it and really suss it out, really. You know, you look at somebody who tries to inflate their numbers, and in reality, they're just inflating their ego at that point. That's just a self-aggrandization in order to look like they've done something with themselves, but in reality, they haven't. They've just either purchased their way there, or in other cases, in more evil cases, other people have done it for them. So then that way they're kind of like they're thinking more of themselves than they actually are. This does actually happen in streaming. Personally, it's called view botting. It is interesting that it can be used in a detrimental way, in a sense that people will honestly be very ego driven in these trying to prove themselves socially without realizing that doing that type of thing where they aren't really honest about it is detrimental to not only their growth on social media, but also just in real life. They won't understand that, like, why does no girl love me? I say I have a girlfriend in Canada or something like that. I have an online girlfriend, something along those lines. Those are things that obviously people will have issue and trouble with because they can snuff it out realistically. They'll be able to see that these people are just not being truthful with them. And when that happens, they immediately shun them and instantly know that nothing they say is of value. So you have to be very careful about those types of things if you are for some reason tied to your ego, to your numbers. But I feel like most of these people, hopefully, that are listening to this aren't like that.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Social proof and or social credit.
The main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it is just funny to see when it happens in examples in my personal life. I think that seeing that, even personally, even when reading something like reviews, I'm like, oh, hey, look at that. This one has way more reviews. Now we can't trust anything like that anymore because of AI and robots and botting shit, but that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. But still, that's the entire idea, is that those things kind of prey on us because they know that if they have the social proof and or other things like that, people are more willing and more likely to buy it. You know, it's like the 1 review versus 100 reviews. You're gonna take the one with 100 reviews, it might be slightly less, but you know more people have gotten it, while the 1 review might be astonishingly good. You don't know what it's like because you're going to be the second one in line. So that first one could have just been like a family member or some shit like that. And it's very unfortunate because then things are usually fucked like that. So we are, in a weird way, living proof of having a a popularity contest kind of rule over the world, really, as long as it looks good on the outside. But we don't really want to talk about that. And also, I'll probably talk about judging a book by its cover, because most of the time, it's probably right, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. But anyways, that's a whole other bunch of stuff that goes into that. But the main reason why I wanted to talk about this is just that seeing it from the eyes of a creator, it is kind of insane that if you don't have anybody at the beginning, you have to work your way into having subscribers and having people that are watching your videos, and then move on up to the next echelon where people are like, oh, he has more than X amount of subscribers, I'll subscribe. And then that works up until a certain point, but that's just insane to me that that's like just how it is. I know there's probably some social phenomena that are about this, and obviously I've probably talked about a couple, but it's fascinating to me that we try to live in a weird society where we're trying to get away from things like that, but yet it just like don't talk about it. But then when it happens in reality, that's just the way it is, but yet like nobody really wants to discuss it and have an actual like meaningful way of not necessarily taking advantage of it, but understanding and incorporating it with something. So then that way you don't either exploit it, or if you do exploit it, you can be shunned for the exploitativeness of yourself, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. It's probably not, but it's still just something that is interesting to me because you don't get a authentic way of doing it. There are people who will do it, and it's very rare. It's a very few and far between. Probably one of the people that I put in the thumbnail is like that. But whenever there gets a point where there's only so far you can get with inauthenticity before people will just dislike it as an entirety. The authenticity is rare, but once the rareness comes around, people will like it and then they'll follow along. And I think that's the main thing about it is, if you are social proof and you have authenticity on your side, then most people will like you and will follow you along, even if you're the same for the most part. If you aren't necessarily evolving or changing, that isn't necessarily why people like you. It's the fact that you're genuine. And I think that is something that I've talked about in an episode before right here. But I also just like the idea that that's also the key component factor that a lot is missing between the social proof that happens in social medias, but not only there, but just generally in life. But a lot of people are trying to fake it before they make it, not realizing that you should just have substance before you go anywhere, because then once you have the substance, anybody will follow you. So it is a whole other thing. There's probably also some allegories into the Bible and stuff there, but I don't want to get into that one in this episode because that's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one is a kind of random one, but an interesting one nonetheless. Something of a social dynamic situation. I always like talking about these things personally, but let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. Okay, I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Take care out there. Stay safe out there. Stay warm out there. Keep it heavy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.